Hey there guys, my name is Joe, and today I'm going to show you how to install Tuftex deck drain on the underside of this deck to give the homeowners a dry, usable space in an area that previously used to get saturated by rain and snow melt. So the first thing I'll talk about is the planning and preparations we'll need to make, the tools we'll need, and then we'll get on to the actual install with a few tips at the end. The first step in the planning process is going to be determining in what direction we want our water to drain. We just need to make sure it's draining away from the structure that the deck is attached to. Once we've decided on that, then we can go about determining how we are going to create a sloped framework of purlins in which to attach the deck to. And that's what we'll do next.
Another thing to consider is a gutter. If you will install a gutter to collect the water, what is the best side of the deck for the gutter? Keep in mind the gutter will be along the lowest edge of the deck drain panels, and you will need a way to support the gutter. For this deck, we want the water to flow away from the structure and in a direction parallel to the deck joists. The gutter will be installed at the far end of the joists. We will be installing purlins to the bottom of the deck, and we will attach deck drain panels to these purlins. The first purlin row, closest to the wall of the structure, can be attached to the deck ledger or the joists. The next purlins rows will be spaced at 2-foot intervals, at 2 feet, 4 feet, 6 feet, 8 feet, and 10 feet. The number of rows depends on the size of the deck. We measured the distance along the joists and used a chalk line to mark the joists for each purlin row. The lower edge of the first purlin, the purlin closest to the wall of the structure, sets the highest edge for the deck drain panels. We need to install the purlins with a slope to let gravity pull the water away from the structure. This means each row of purlins will be at a different height. The easiest way to mount the purlins at the proper level with a slope is to attach 2x4 sections that we call hangers. We attached the first 2 hangers to the joists at the outer edges of the deck at the 10-foot mark, 10 feet out from the wall of the structure. We measured and set the lower edge of these 2 hangers to between 1 and 1.5 inches below the bottom of the joist. That set the slope we needed for the deck drain panels. Then we used a string line across the joists to set the position for the intermediate hangers at the 10-foot mark and mounted the hangers to the joists. With all of the hangers in place at the 10-foot mark, we attached the 2x4 purlin across the hangers. Now we needed to set the positions for the other rows of hangers at the 2-foot, 4-foot, 6-foot, and 8-foot marks. We ran a string line from the first purlin at the wall of the structure to the purlin at the 10-foot mark along the outer joist of the deck. We installed a hanger at the 2-foot, 4-foot, 6-foot, and 8-foot marks on the outer joist. We ran the string line from the first purlin to the purlin at the 10-foot mark. That means the string line was at the lower edge of the purlins, not the lower edge of the hangers. Therefore, we had to make sure to account for the thickness of the 2x4 purlins when setting the hanger positions. Once the hangers were installed at the 2-foot, 4-foot, 6-foot, and 8-foot marks on the outer joist, we repeated the process for the sloped hangers on the other outer joist. Once this reference point was established, we then used string lines across the deck to set the rest of our purlin hangers. These purlin hangers were made out of the same pressure-treated 2x4s that we're going to be using for our purlins, and they were set on every other joist. Once all of the hangers were set and leveled out, we then installed all of our purlins at 24 inches on center. And because we had an odd angle at the end of our deck, we had to install an angled purlin to maintain our 24-inch on center support for the eventual install of our Tuftex panels.
At this point in the project, we've successfully created a gently sloping framework of horizontal purlins in which to mount our panels to. The next step is going to be actually installing the panels, and we'll get to that now.
And here are the tools you'll need to install the panels. some safety glasses and something to mark with, a saw or 10 snips to cut the panels with, a drill or driver with a 1/4 inch hex bit, some Tuff-Tex fasteners, a tape measure, vinyl adhesive caulking, and a string line and a chalk line to keep everything nice and straight. Installing the panels is relatively easy as they are pretty lightweight, but they do have a fair bit of flex, so having a partner is greatly beneficial. While your partner is holding the panel in place, you can begin fastening in the upper portion of the corrugations that is making contact with the purlin. And here's an example of what this should look like. The portion of the panel that is closest to the wall or overlapping another panel will receive fasteners at every corrugation. And the intermediate rows will receive a fastener at every other corrugation, with a double fastener at the seams so as to stagger between the rows. And here's an example of what that should look like. Notice each corrugation doesn't go more than 2 rows without the support of a fastener. And in climates where heavy icing may occur, more fasteners may be required. Cutting the panels can easily be accomplished with a circular saw or 10 snips. And for all overlapping edges and seams, remember to use a good vinyl adhesive caulk. On secondary courses, the overlap should be a minimum of 4 inches. In our case, we're doing it at about 5 inches and using a string line to get everything nice and straight. And when installing your fasteners on an overlapping panel, it's always important to remember to start at the edge or the seam and work your way out. This will help to ensure that your seams stay flat and aligned. After the panels are installed, you may choose to flash or trim up the edges. This will give a cleaner, more finished look as well as keep any birds or other critters out. And the last step of the install will be to finish off the system with a gutter to direct and divert the rainwater and snowmelt away from your newly protected deck area. For those of you who may not have a partner to help in this install, here are a couple props I made to help in holding the panels up while fastening them. This first is a cantilever style that uses a couple of pieces of scrap wood and a bar clamp, and does a remarkably good job at holding the panel steady while fastening it. And this second one is an L frame with a height adjustment that I made by cutting a slot down both of the 2x3s and adding some bolts with wing nuts. And here it is in action. Simply loosen up the wing nuts and then slide to the desired height that you need. And once you have it at the height that you need, simply clamp it to a ladder or a chair or something else sturdy and then go about mounting your panel. And to keep your fasteners straight, use a chalk line. It gives you a nice frame of reference and cleans up very easily. And if you don't want to use a rag, you can simply use a soft bristle broom at the end of the project and clean it up as well. And for those of you who don't like to use tool belts, simply rip off the tabs of the box and tuck it in your belt, and it makes a nice fastener holder during the job.
Well guys, it's all finished now and I think it turned out great. Whether you're looking to add additional living space underneath your deck or just have a dry, useful area to store tools and equipment out of the rain and snow melt, I think Deck Drain is a great option. So I hope this was a helpful video and maybe gave you some ideas for your own deck project. And as always, thanks for watching and good luck on your install. And for further installation instructions that may have not been covered in this video, please consult the Deck Drain installation guide.